Rarely has mankind hesitated to eradicate the creatures that stand in the path of his conquest. If we find intelligent species, ritual extirpation of undesirable beings, odors from another world, the rest must be destroyed. Is it possible that our dark past has repeated itself?
Watch them and pray.
Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, government agents, people in Puerto Rico, unsure if they should celebrate American Independence Day, and anybody who might be listening. This is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. I am your host, Tasker, and we have Nick.
Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow. You really wanted to flex that R roll and you've been working on. Is that just because...
That's Mexican.
Yeah, well, no. There's a lot more cultures that use the rolling R.
I know the ay thing.
Oh,
is that
okay.
like that's Mexican, right?
Yeah, stereotypically,
It's the
yes.
same shit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Puerto Rico, Mexico.
Sort of,
they both
kinda.
ended in O.
See, and this is an interesting back and forth because Nick and I are actually recording in person for this one.
Woo!
So I actually could technically reach over and throttle his throat in case, whereas I couldn't do that before. And Nick, you've been getting cocky. You've been really pushing it lately, huh?
Yeah, because there's a computer screen between us. Not only do you have the power to edit, but now you have the power to stop me if I go too far.
Yeah, there's actually the threat of physical violence, which, speaking of that, I mean, we are recording in Nick's remote basement in the middle of nowhere. Took fucking forever to get here.
Yes.
And I got to say, from my standpoint, you know when in American Psycho, before Christian Bale does the axe murder with Huey Lewis in the news?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. That's kind of the vibe. It's very clean and neat. You heard my voice crack because I am kind of worried on whether or not I am a guest or a victim.
You're wondering why the couch you're sitting on is covered in plastic?
Yeah, that's also kind of an odd thing because I know you're a bit of a germaphobe, but now that I've made the example, it's like, like I said, the voice crack, I think it said it all.
I mean, don't look behind your seat. There is definitely not a fire axe behind your seat.
Don't. If I'm going to go, I want to go in blissful ignorance. I just want to let it happen, just pretend I was having a good time recording in a shitty remote basement.
Yes. Yeah, man. Welcome to my dungeon. This is it. This is where I spend my time. This is where I pee in bottles. This is where the magic happens, baby.
If you recall last episode, we got on Nick's bottle peeing escapades. But I got to say, now that I'm in the location itself, yeah, those stairs are pretty tedious.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Dude, these stairs in my house are steeper than fucking the stairs at Chichen Itza, dude.
They are quite steep. And it's one of those things, and I think that's a very good lesson. Because today we're talking about the Civil War and a lesson of conflict of man against man, brother against blubber, man against blubber, everything in between. And if I wouldn't have been able to come to this conclusion if I didn't experience it myself. You got to walk a mile in another guy's shoes. And sometimes in those shoes, you got to go up 2 fucking flights of stairs just to take a piss.
Yep. So now Nick's not so crazy, is he?
I just needed a little bit of perspective, which is going to be a theme for today because it is 4th of July, the day we are recording this.
And I'm proud to be an American where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died and gave that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still.
Nick did a fat Sieg Heil while he did that, and he is rock hard, too.
I just can't help myself.
Oh, yeah. No, this is a good day to celebrate your freedoms, if you have them, because America, as we know, is a very tumultuous place right now,
and also we know that not all of our listeners are from America. We understand that, but just know that it is important to us, so we are doing an episode kind of on it.
Sort of, kind of. But if you are, obviously by the time you listen to this, it'll be in the future. 4th of July has already passed, so we hope you had a good, safe one. You hope that no fingers were blown off, or at least if they were blown off, it was the ring finger or something.
Yeah, something you're not never going to use.
Right, ever, especially if you're a listener to this podcast.
Yeah, that's fucked that you even said that. You think that our listeners can't get tied down?
I mean, probably better than we could.
That's true.
Yeah, we stink.
We stink physically, like we stink mentally, and like it smells like piss down here.
It's pretty bad. I do. I do enjoy that it is nice and cool down here, though. That's something that's both terrifying because it kind of reminds me of like a hospital or like a butcher's workplace. I don't know what you call those.
Don't worry about the meat hooks in the ceiling. That's for art.
Yeah, that's concerning on many levels, but And actually, it's kind of in season. Nothing like a good old fresh meat for 4th of July to throw in the barbecue.
Why do you think I invited you over, buddy? You're what's for dinner.
I
so
fucking knew it. Yeah, that whole like locking eyes with the predator. It's kind of the feeling, but like I wouldn't have it any other way.
good. I'd rather eat you than anybody else.
I had to be murdered or assaulted in any way. Both. It could be sexual too. I don't know that.
It's very sexual. When I talk about eating other people, it's very sexual.
There's a whole ritual involved with it that is curious and lengthy. So
Cannibalism is not illegal. It's just the means by which you usually get the meat, which is illegal.
The murder is illegal. But if you get your hands on a person, but legally, you could technically eat it with no repercussions. It would just be at the risk of losing all respect and friends and family.
Or turning into a Wendigo, which is not fun.
Which we did do an episode on it. If you want to check that out on how to prevent that from happening to you, high recommendation. Life of a Wendigo sounds glamorous, and it is not.
It's not. Forever hungry.
Yep, forever hungry hashtag. So before we jump into things, we should do our horoscope, which is our usual way of catching the vibe of how this episode's going to go. It's 4th of July. I'm hoping for something patriotic, but you want to go first?
I'll do it. I'll do it first.
All right.
Spread your ideas out to the world, Cancer. Now is a great time to go on a long trip, or at least begin planning one. Explore the far reaches of your space, literally and figuratively. Join others who share similar spiritual mission. By reaching out to new and different people, you can have some unforgettable experiences with the potential to have a positive influence on your life.
Oh. I mean, you did demonstrate burning all sorts of herbs to cleanse your house. Is that somewhat relatable?
I think so. I think it won't. Well, as background, I've been showing Tasker some magic in person. I've been brushing up. It's been a while, and we're gonna be doing those eventually. But that's what he's talking about. Yeah, we burnt some herbs. We went to. I dragged him to a metaphysical store yesterday, which was a good experience for him.
It was fun.
But I think what it's really telling me to do is to. I think it's really just telling me to be more like open-minded when it comes to different peoples and cultures. Maybe the stars weren't happy that I opened the episode by making fun of Puerto Rico. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's more than just the stars were a little upset about that.
All of our listeners in Puerto Rico are probably kind of pissed too. So when they get their power back on, they'll hear this and they're going to be super mad.
Yep, and of course what is that? What do you call up that herb place? Like an apothecary or?
Yeah. If it was just herbs, I would call it an apothecary, but it was like, it had everything. It had your crystals, it had herbs, it had cauldrons, it had all kinds of shit. Just like a metaphysical shop or like a witch shop. But yes, an apothecary, that's what it said in the little sticker on all those baggies I got. It did say apothecary.
Yeah, the only concerning part is that it was in a burnt down building, and it was a weird decrepit man named Ted, who's just kind of missing a couple teeth, and is like, hey, you want some wares? That was a little off-putting.
It was strange because when we stepped outside after we made our purchase, the building wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, that was also concerning. It's been a weird, like I said, Nick's in middle of nowhere. If you remember Courage the Cowardly Dog at the TV show, middle of nowhere is creepy stuff happens.
Yeah, and also what's even worse is when we pulled up to go to the metaphysical store, it was attached to an Islamic center.
I do recall there was a minute where like, hey, dude, we could just convert right now.
Convert right now, but dude, they're gonna send us on like a suicide mission. Literally,
that's not how that works. Oh. That's extremism. That's like Heaven's Gate is. That's like seeing what happened with Heaven's Gate and saying that all Christians do that.
Yeah, that was fine. I'll listen to the stars. That was close-minded of me to say. I apologize to any Muslims who listen to this. Mm-hmm. You're taking it in stride. Thank you.
And if you were just about to push that power button, I'm happy you didn't. It's going to be a good episode.
Yes. We're going to make fun of America today, okay? Not you guys, so don't worry.
It's going to be bad.
Oh, and I have to do my stars. I forgot about that. Let's see. Pretty good. Sex is a 4 out of 5. Hustle's a 4 out of 5. Vibe is a 4 out of 5. And success is a 3 out of 5.
And for the first time ever, after the episode, we'll be able to take those sex stars to the test.
Yeah, because I'm going to give you so many reach arounds during this recording.
Nick's a talented man.
I can give you the corkscrew. I could do an old fashioned. I could do whatever you want. Now, I don't normally point this out about our horoscopes, but in today's matches, it says love, friendship, career. I did want to point out that my friendship one is a Scorpio.
Ah,
it just kind of all adds up today.
Curious. Yeah, let me just see mine. Nah, mine's Virgo. Sorry, man.
Oh, who the fuck?
I know.
You cheating on me, bro?
With fucking Ted and the disappearing apothecary.
Hey, take your herbs and get out of here.
You can take one look at my butthole and that's it. He's a generous guy.
Yeah, he was super nice. He only charges $20.
I know, that's cheap. Oh, God. So in my case, there's likely to be a bit of tension today regarding your position in society, Scorpio. Maybe you're running into issues that stem from your involvement in the collective versus your focus on your personal issues. Make sure these two aspects of your life are in balance. Unexpected things may pop out of the woodwork to keep you on your toes. So a little self-care.
Self-care. What did it say about, what was the first part it was talking about where your place in society? What do you think it means by that?
Tension regarding your place in society. Might be middle of nowhere. Might be the cult around us. That's a little concerning.
You know what's funny is when you come and stay at a witch's house, but then you're afraid of the people not in the house.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're in a weird place.
Funny enough, yeah, I actually feel safer in Nick's murder dungeon than I do anywhere else. So that doesn't say what needs to be said. I don't know what will.
Yeah, just know, everybody, there's some weirdos out here.
Yeah, for sure. But in terms of star ratings, sex is a 2 out of 5, pretty low. But hustle's a 4 out of 5, vibe is a 4 out of 5, success is a 4 out of 5. So if I don't think with my dick today, I should be okay.
Hey, amen, man. Any day you don't think with your dick is a good day.
That's true. It's like you got to follow logic. Like, what was that one thing? It's like one of the biggest pranks that God pulled is he gave man a penis and a brain, but enough blood to only let one run at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's either one or the other, baby.
Yeah. Make your choice. But hey,
that's why I got mine cut off.
Yeah.
I'm a eunuch.
Yep. And you're just brilliant. Your inner genius is just spurted forth.
Yep. It's like that movie Limitless, except for a pill. I just got my balls, my cock and balls cut off.
What if that was like the secret?
It probably is the secret. That's the problem.
Closest thing. But if you're a eunuch, let us know if you feel like a genius, because we might be onto something. Well, let's. Okay, maybe we should encourage this.
Yeah, I don't want to see your tragic Ken doll like bottom half. Okay,
because our luck, we're gonna get people who send pictures.
Yeah,
and then we're gonna get canceled for making fun of
it. Yeah, we will.
Anyways, so. First of all, everybody, welcome back. And as we said before, hope you all had a safe and fun 4th of July. This is another one of those episodes where I kind of took the reins.
Woo.
Yeah, because Nick was really busy this week. I had a free week.
And also it has to do with history. And what do I always tell you guys? If it has something to do with real research, I don't want any fucking part of it.
It's the pact that we've come up with, and it seems to be working fine.
Yes. Thank you for doing it, because I wanted to hear the stories. I just didn't want to look into it.
Yeah, it's because this is one of those, Civil War ghosts. You do kind of have to know the context of it to really, because that's the things. They're not like, this isn't like, what's that movie, like 1408 or something, like shit's flying out. Like, it's not like that. This is a very like we said, that's why we're doing it on 4th of July. It's very, very American in spirit.
Yeah, and it gives you an idea of the horrific shit that went down during the Civil War that nobody really tells you about. That's
really kind of the emphasis here, is like the ghost is the after effect of the the fucking horrors of the Civil War. And this was back before, anesthetics.
Anesthetics,
and
yeah.
AIDS, yes. But I think AIDS would be a mercy compared to the arm chopping off and the whatever diseases they were getting, and just
gangrene and
whole shebang.
What they call it what was it called when you're basically dying from alcoholism?
Alcohol poisoning?
No, there's like an old timey disease. Fuck it, who knows? I'm not a historian. Never mind. It was something dumb, and it was something that sounded like bad, but it was basically you're just an alcoholic who's dying.
Ah, got you. And it didn't help that the food sucked. There was not a whole lot, just a lot of moldy crackers. Because a lot of this, as you'll come to find, a lot of volunteer armies were involved in the Civil War, because, we'll get into it, because before we jump in, I felt it really necessary to do sort of like a little bit of a quick crash course on how the Civil War happened, and not just for our non-American listeners, but to anybody who went to public school and got a shitty job of it. I mean, who knows? I could be even wrong about some of this shit, but I did the best I could.
I have faith in your research.
Well, I hope it pans out, because today we figured, of course, the best way to celebrate the birth of the grand old USA would be the good old paranormal. So the American Civil War accounts for the most American deaths in any armed conflict in history, 620,000.
And why is that? Because Americans killing Americans, brothers killing brothers, man.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy, though. Like World War II, every other war we've ever fought, not even close to this. But like you said, it's also kind of a cheap shot, to say that this was the most because it's true, but like you said, it's because Americans were killing Americans. We were the primary target. In modern standards, 620,000 people dying, that's equivalent to basically if the entire population of Memphis, Tennessee, or Portland, Oregon just got wiped out.
Which, let's be honest.
Be careful.
It wouldn't be the worst day on earth if that happened.
For what? Memphis or Portland?
Memphis, because country music sucks, and then Portland because I hate hipsters.
I'm surprised at the country music one. That's right. You did have a revelation about how repetitive it is, right?
I did. Yeah, I've changed my ways. I'm kidding. Both of you guys are great. Both of those. Yeah, I hope that you all live.
All the people in all the southern United States and Portland, Oregon, all just shut off because they're just like, all right, this fucking guy. They had their Confederate flag up and everything.
I'm thinking of Nashville.
Yeah, no, Memphis is different.
I'm dumb. Whatever. Wait, isn't Memphis where Elvis lived, or was that somewhere else?
You would know more than I would.
He died on a toilet. That's all I know.
You almost died on the toilet this morning.
I almost died on the toilet. I worked out so fucking hard. I didn't think I'd be able to stand up off the toilet, and I almost had a heart attack.
It was insane to see hulking Nick with your legs shaking.
I looked like I had polio, dude. I was walking around with crutches and shit.
It was a sight to be. It's been an interesting trip, I'll tell you, everybody. Getting a very clear insight on Nick's day-to-day.
It's sad.
Oh, boy. So when it came to the Civil War, there were literal valleys filled with blood, screams of hatred, torture, and agony ringing throughout the air, and an overall feeling of malaise over fighting one's own countrymen. With all of that, we are pretty damn sure that there are at least some of the soldiers who perished on the battlefield might still be lingering over parts of the East Coast to this day.
That's right. I mean, with all that hatred, all that unfinished business, if you will, it's primo territory for our buddies, the ghosts.
Oh, yeah. It was, as we've talked about before, like negativity is kind of a big deal. Like, especially when it comes to, like, I mean, I guess that's more in like, with like, I know we talked about that with like alien episodes and stuff, but like when it comes to these like negative emotions, that's just a harbinger of like, ghosts and paranormal, or as some might say, the can't believe I'm fucking talking about this, but the crossing dimensions.
Wow, look at you, man.
Oh, it's fucking upsetting.
One weekend here, and you're already talking about dimensions. You're talking of, I'm proud of you. You're making good. And you made some very intuitive statements when I was discussing magic and witchcraft with you yesterday, and I think I'm rubbing off on you.
It's unfortunate. I think I do remember there was like an episode where I forget exactly what happened, but then there was that point when like he brought up like you might actually be like the perfect setup to be a magician. I don't know about
you
this.
might be a warlock, man.
Fuck. I don't know, man. I don't
Just
know.
embrace it.
We'll see when we get to the magic episode, which I will say though, when we were like looking at all like the herbs and shit, like you knew what every single one of them did. So I'm impressed.
It'll be a fun series. But yeah, you got it. You're a warlock at heart. Embrace it. Don't let people tell you differently.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how hard I get bullied into doing it. So, as I said before, for anyone not in America or for those who were basically sleeping through junior high history, which I do not blame you for.
Present. That was me.
Yep. It was, God, those lectures were so long because it is a very interesting subject, but when approached the wrong way, it can be one of the most boring goddamn things you will hear in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I was fine with learning the history of other nations and other countries because it's a lot older. There's a lot more stuff that went behind it.
Right.
American history made me want to hang myself. Anytime I had a class, whether it was in junior high, whether it was at community college, I hated American history.
Yeah, it's really boring. It's shockingly boring. Like, and yet, because it's one of those things like if you lived through it, it'd be like fucking hella like adrenaline pumping insanity because people were dying left and right and shit was wild. But like something about the way it's written about just makes it really dull and I think a lot of it too is because it's like when like a movie gets like overhyped. And you go into it expecting something crazy, and it's just like, it's good, but it's like, it kind of got spoiled.
Yeah.
I think Civil War is in a similar vein of everyone, oh, the Civil War, da, da, da. That's all we talk about all fucking year. And even worse, we're being quizzed on it.
Is there a quiz at the end of this?
If you want there to be.
No.
I mean, I'm going to fail it too. So it's
Okay,
like,
good.
I fucking researched it and I'd still fuck it up. Oh, boy. So we're going to do our own kind of take on it. We're going to try to spin it. We're going to do, of course, an extremely hyper simplified version of it. Like, it's so complicated. It's very complex with all the different things that happen. But like I said, we're not in school, so let's go to the that phrase you used, the meat and potatoes.
Let's just do that. Let's just get down into it.
Yeah, exactly. So, when it came to the Civil War, why it happened, what made America cave in on itself in the 1800s was, you guessed it, slavery.
Swing low, sweet chariot. You know?
Is that a slave song?
It's an old slave song,
I'm
baby.
surprised. Did you prep that for this?
No, I just kind of know that.
Why? Don't answer that. So, when basically there's a lot of other people who say like, oh, it was like state lines. Oh, it was politics. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of other explanations for what led to the war, but any explanation you can think of in some way or another goes back to slavery. So I'm going to say it was slavery. That's what made all this bullshit happen. So where this all actually began on the founding of the United States of America, because the founding fathers never came to a consensus on slavery, because when it came to their opinions on it, there were some that dug it and some that didn't. So there was a thing they did called the 3/5 Compromise, which was they did it because the South, they were plantations and farming and agriculture. So they had a bunch of slaves. So they were going to use the slaves to cheat the system by boosting their population numbers to get more representation. And the non-slave holders were like, that's bullshit. Like, why do you get to count slaves? Like, if they're your property, like that seems, they were cheating. That's why we had 3/5 compromise of, okay, let's just make them worth 3/5 of a person. So that way everyone's happy.
Ew, that was a racist move. That is when you can look at a human being and be like, let's fraction up this guy.
Yep.
That's not a good sign.
Well, and we'll come to find too, a lot of the big issues that led to the Civil War was Southern plantation owners, slaveholders, truly did not see slaves as human.
I'm not going to say I get it because I don't understand. But, and I say this very heavily with buts, somebody got to pick that cotton, dude.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah. King Cotton was a deal. That was the name they had for it back then. And we'll get into a little bit more.
But they should have paid him.
Well, no,
They should have not been slaves. They should have been paid workers, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. So, okay, let me just do this before we get into let's make it official that the stance is that slavery was bad.
It was not cool, man. It's never cool.
It was human rights violation because it was not just the labor. It was the endless labor every single day. It was the torture. It was the beatings. It was the murders. There was rape. There was everything. They were being tortured every day, all the time. It wasn't in every single, because some people say like not all slave owners. And yes, there were cases in which the living conditions were more suitable, because also too, one thing to keep in mind back then was there was a benefit to keeping your slaves alive and happy. Well, not happy, but working, because if they were miserable or they would die in the fields, you'd have to buy another. That costs money. And which is in a weird way, even the merciful angle of this is fucked up. So let's just be clear right now. Slavery is fucking horrible. The North was definitely in the right on this.
The North was in the right. But you could have prevented a whole war if you just fucking paid them.
Yep, exactly. And we'll go into more of what the South's position was on it. And you'll come to find it's a classic case of doubling down because you're pissed off, and then realizing by doubling down, you really can't go back on it.
Yeah. But what more do you expect from the South? No offense to any of you who live in the South, but my God.
Yeah, we're actually going to learn. We'll go into a lot of like where all that started, because there are still sentiments to this day.
Oh, the South will rise again.
Yeah, which I'm sure you have said on the show a couple times.
I have.
Unbelievable. So after the 3/5 Compromise, the Founding Fathers basically just pushed slavery to the side, claiming it to be an issue for the states to figure out. They just are barely squeezing by in the Revolution. They're kind of like, dude, I know. Like, we'll figure this shit out later. And they never did. Because, as I said before, most of the southern states were down for slavery because They had, crops to take care of, and it's easier to have, kind of like in modern day with taking advantage of immigrants and forcing them to do all the cheap, like, it's in a weird way. There is in modern day technically a quasi-slavery. Like, it is technically kind of slavery. We just pay them like so little that it's just like one peg above, not much better. And the worst part is in the prison system too. Now we're getting political here, but arguably prisoners are technically the slaves of the modern era, but the only difference is it doesn't matter if they die or not, because then you could just arrest somebody else.
Yeah. And when it comes to the immigrant thing, like, I get it. I understand that they're not paid a lot and there's like rough working conditions and stuff. But hey, man, they decided to come here. So let's get, hey, man, the American dream, right? Picking oranges and shit, selling them on the side of the freeway.
That's why.
That's your uncle to people, man.
I got Mexican in my blood. What can I say? Hardworking people.
Hardworking, stout, drunk.
Well, aren't we all, though?
Yeah.
I mean, can you blame them?
No. I mean, it's a tough life. It's a tough life, man. But you know what? And I know that I'm just joking. I know people are going to say, Nick, that's racist.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if they stay in Mexico, it's probably a lot worse.
And generally speaking, I mean, I've never been there because I've heard the stories, and I'm going to give that a hard pass.
I've been there, and I made it out alive twice.
Good job.
Barely. I was a tight 13-year-old boy.
Perfectly ripe.
And they were like, hey, man, look at that kid over there, man.
So, of course, that tangent was to explain that slavery and the sentiments around it, they have found ways to work around it. But let's go back to when it was just what it was. They called it what it was, and they did it as it was, which was slavery. And actually, since the founding of the nation, because that's the thing, some people, like, they think, like, oh, once they found out the truth of slavery, oh, no, it's bad. No, actually, slavery had been a constant, like, topic of discussion, kind of like abortion right now. It's something where it's like nobody really wants to fucking talk about it because it's such an intense, touchy subject. But the North generally was fairly anti-slave. And a lot of that was because, the big premise of creating the United States was all men are created equal. But we're also going to own a couple other men because we want the free labor. Like, it's a little ironic, but also too, the ethical question was pretty clear. Like, even back then, like, that's the thing. They didn't just like let them get away with it. There was some arguments about it, but in the beginning, it was more like an abortion discussion where it's like people going to do it still, but like that's about as far as it went. So
life begins at conception.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know what that means. No, ladies, do whatever you want to do, man. It's not my vagina.
Yeah, there you go. Your life choices. You do what you gotta. But the thing that changed especially was industrialization started to catch some momentum in the North, which, if you don't know what that is, it's factories, modern era, what led us into the modern day. And the great thing about industrialization, outside of the poor, child labor and working conditions, was you could produce a lot of shit real quick. And with that, the economy started to really boom. Like, we were able to crank stuff out way faster than we ever could. So with that boom in economy, there was a higher demand for, say, for example, we have a t-shirt factory that can crank out shirts real quick. We're going to need a lot more cotton.
And who's going to be picking my cotton?
Oh, my God.
Who down there in the South going to be picking my cotton?
Did you use that for your audition for a Django Unchained?
Yeah, I did not get the part because I was supposed to play Django.
Yeah, that was awkward.
That didn't work either. It was like, hey, man, you don't have enough melanin.
What's his face? Quentin Tarantino was thrilled for the idea, but...
Yeah, that's because he's a fucking psycho.
Yeah, he's got some interesting viewpoints. But anyways, industrialization was happening in the North. And of course, a lot more cotton was needed. So South obviously did not have factories. They still relied on just hand picking things. So as America's economy grew, South had to keep up with that demand. And to them, slaves certainly made that possible. Disputes over slavery began to arise more frequently, though, as America got its footing since its founding. One of the biggest arguments that was splitting people left and right and really pushing it to the next level was, if a slave makes it into a free state or escapes, are they still a slave? And the solution they settled on was the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, which said that escaped slaves should be deported back to their owners if discovered, as they were considered property instead of people. Not great.
Ugh, yikes. That's not a good piece of legislation.
Not a good look. Pretty bad. So the North was, because keep in mind, it's the United States. If you have the South, if they have representation in Congress and in the presidency, they can pass these laws fairly easily. And you got half the nation rooting for it, So naturally, opinions on that solution soured, and efforts to hide and protect escaped slaves started to gain more traction. That's where we get our underground railroads. We have our,
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Harriet Tubman, right?
Yeah.
How do they fit a train underground?
It's oh my
Right?
God. There's no train underground. It's an underground it's like hidden pathways and stuff like that. They called it the Underground Railroad because it was like just the name. It was kind of like a code name, I guess you could say, to oversimplify it.
So there's no train.
There's no train.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. Some of them did escape on actual trains, but the Underground Railroad was not a train underground.
All right. Yeah, whatever. Continue. Harriet Tubman, you fucking liar.
Oh, jeez.
Isn't she supposed to be in our $20 bills?
She was. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Huh.
Actually, I'm not surprised. This is America, after all.
Yeah. More old white men on our money, please.
Ain't that the way? Oh, man. Glad we're doing this on 4th of July. It really works.
Yeah, it's just like we're simultaneously praising and shitting on the country we live in.
Yep. Sounds about right, honestly. That's about as American as it gets.
Damn straight. Because I have the freedom to say this shit. If this was China, there would be people knocking on my door right now with a noose in their hands.
Oh, yeah. We'd be good. The episode would cut off right here, and it would be the last one. So, as the ethical question of slavery began to grow and grow and grow, it became impossible to ignore, which gave rise to the, as you might know, abolitionist movement to abolish slavery. You might know the name Frederick Douglass. He was an escaped slave turned author and orator.
What the fuck is an orator?
This guy who gives speeches.
Oh, so they give him a fancy name. So instead of calling him speech man, they call him orator?
Yeah, because that's what it's called.
It's a dumb word.
his soul just came back to spite you. Oh, my God. So, of course, Frederick Douglass famously shattered the illusion of the Southern slavery for many on the fencers because his speeches and autobiographies revealed the cruel and unedited horrors of life as a slave. Because as you can imagine, some people are come to the defense saying like, no, they're like fucking Kanye that one time was like, no, the slaves had it great. They loved it there. Or even the fucking Boondocks, they had like a bit about it with Uncle Ruckus trying to explain it. It's just got a very funny episode and a great piece of satire. But yeah, slavery was fucking horrible. It was hell on earth in the South for anybody unfortunate to be a slave. And they did their best, like Americans do, to cover it up, change the story, whatever, all this stuff. But, he's the one who came up with the real deal. One of the more famous cases was in the autobiography, My Bondage and My Freedom. Frederick Douglass was sent, because he was a bit unruly, was sent to what is known as a slave breaker, a man named Edward Covey, where Frederick Douglass was routinely tortured, beaten, and berated to a near unescapable madness every single day for a year straight on the aptly named farm, Mount Misery, up until he acted more subservient. So, just to emphasize this, he was essentially tortured every single day, made to work almost to death. They said that his whippings were so frequent that they did not heal by the time they hit the next one. Like, he was still bleeding from the one previous. Not a good look.
That sucks, man.
Yeah.
The autobiography, though, the name My Bondage and My Freedom sounds a lot like a porn I'd make, though.
I mean, if you really
Should I not make fun of that?
If you really have that bad of taste, if you really want to go down that lane, you could probably sell a couple, but I would not.
All right, yeah, maybe that's not a good idea. maybe we'll cut this. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see how it sounds. So, with all this going on, naturally the North turned to the South and it was kind of like, hey, explain. And the South states basically replied with, well, okay, like, guys, I know it looks bad, but like, we're not all like this. It's a bit over. It was just, there's some fucked up people who do some fucked up things. But also, too, it's your fucking fault that we need slaves to keep up with economic demand. So, like, why are you blaming us? You're the one who you made us need slaves, was their essential angle. So, needless to say, abolitionist movement was like, you fuckers, and it exploded. And the North really started to really get some real traction here. There was this really big, now actually palpable movement to end slavery. So Southerners were quickly branded as monstrous villains. In reply, the South accused the North of not really getting how important slavery is to them in their way of life, Also adding that if slaves were freed and integrated, their economy would not only collapse, but all the freed slaves would turn violent and murder all of them.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like that's fair.
I'm sure it was a tempting thing to think. And we'll see. As you'll see, there's another thing that spikes that fear even further. But basically, neither side backed down. The South was like, they doubled down. The North was like, you guys are assholes. So now that there's, like we said, some real momentum to abolishing slavery, slave owners started to get real threatened and started to get real defensive. And now it's starting to be like, it's less about, oh, the North thinks what we're doing is wrong. They're dumb. Now it's turning into the North wants us to get killed by our slaves. So now it's becoming a more personal. So the South, basically, as they thought ending slavery would just fuck them completely. All so that the hoity-toity North could feel a little bit better about themselves. That's kind of was their angle. Obviously, that's some fucking high scale, what do you call it? When you're like trying to like back away from the truth, repression.
All them goddamn city slickers up in the North think they're going to do a good job, huh? And you think I'm going to go out there and pick the cotton my goddamn self? I don't think so, buddy.
Literally, though, actually. And because now this is no longer a matter of opinion, it is now about morality, ethics, and, the actual murder and torture of other human beings for profit, because that is what it was. So as you can imagine, shit was, hitting the fan. People were getting pretty mad, but that's about as far as it went. Until a little thing called Manifest Destiny took storm. And the USA more than doubled in size after, Louisiana Purchase, Northwest Territory, conquering California in the Mexican-American War.
And you can't forget about the gold rush.
You cannot forget about the gold rush.
Let's get some of that gold. I'll go down there at the pan. Oh, God damn it. I got some gold.
Oh, God. Which I do got to say, my alma mater, they originally, a prospector was their mascot. During the gold rush, Native Americans were killed very frequently and in heavy numbers. So, needless to say, it was in bad taste. They are the Sharks now.
But hey, they have casinos now, so it's all cool.
Not really, but throw some support, sure.
That's rude.
Oh, God. So we now have a new problem. With all these new states, which one should be allowed to have slaves and which one should not? Because with the growing abolitionist movement, the North became more and more of a land for free soil. Anybody can be free. Slavery is illegal. So South was like, well, we don't want the North to have all these states because that's not fair to us. We want to expand too. And the North told them to go fuck themselves. So this territory dispute became an absolute shit show. Every compromise and basically turned into disagreement, which turned into hatred, which is when people began to go extreme. And the clearest example of this was in Kansas, where basically it was a mix of both pro-slavery, anti-slavery, and they just started killing each other. And that was the first bloodshed over slavery. And that situation is known as Bleeding Kansas, which is probably something that was on your Civil War test at one point. We're not going to linger on it too long, but it was basically a prelude to the Civil War. This was the thing I was going to bring up, is there was a guy named John Brown, took it upon himself to seize arms and send them to slaves to start a rebellion in the South. Him and his posse were very quickly caught and hanged, and Brown's last words echoed for bloodshed to absolve the United States of its sin of slavery. Now, abolitionists, some of them took this as martyrdom, as in a call to action, whereas the South took this as proof that the minute slaves were free, that would be the end of their livelihood and lives and the death of their families as they knew it. So you're probably thinking, what's the president doing at this time? Democrat James Buchanan, mostly bent to the South because he was a fucking sympathizer and a huge pushover. But when it came to preserving the Union, he was a huge pussy and did very little in terms of trying to figure out a way to make this work. Because since he sided with the South, all the Northerners were like, what the fuck? And since he wasn't doing enough for the South was like, what the fuck? Leading him to earning the title of one of the worst presidents in American history.
That's why nobody knows who he is.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, they basically blame him for not being able to prevent the Civil War. They say it was pretty much his fault. He was a horrible statesman and just could not do it properly. But it gets worse. He stepped down at the end of his term instead of running for re-election. For this part of the story, things got really political and complicated, but what I gathered, he was supposed to endorse a successor to run for president, and that should have been that. But he was also a little bitch inside of his own party, had all kinds of squabbles, and basically pissed everyone off so much that they actually questioned his judgment on a successor. so much that people started to favor other candidates. And lo and behold, they ended up in the actual presidential race. The South had 3 separate candidates running against each other at the same time. Now, the problem with that is with 3 separate candidates, all your Southern votes are going to get split into 3 because, some of them favor the others, making it an easy sweep for our boy Abraham Lincoln, the only Republican candidate running.
I was like, he must have been looking at him, just shaking his head like, what a bunch of retards.
They fucked themselves on that. It's a matter of just party divisions. They fucked themselves. And on top of that, Lincoln lost the popular vote. And some say, and I don't know how fully true this is, but they say some southern states literally had 0 votes for Lincoln, which was either because they really did hate him that much, or they just didn't put his name on the ballot. It's like, no, we're not voting for him. He's gonna he's anti-slave. We don't want that. And the irony is that Lincoln actually was not super anti-slave when he first came into office, but as we know with the Emancipation Proclamation, he ended up being a major force of anti-slavery. Anyways, the fact was think of it this way. Like, think of when Donald Trump won. And when Donald Trump lost, for all you Trumpers out there, and seeing that Joe Biden had 0 votes in some place and somehow he still won the election. Absolute fucking outrage. They were like, we got cheated, we got swindled. Yeah. Drinking the Kool-Aid and everything. So defeated, desperate, fearing further loss of their government influence, losing the president that sided with their cause, and the inevitable outlawing of slavery looming, the southern states decided that the only way to keep things the way they were, to save their lives, their family, and their livelihood, so they thought, was to secede from the United States and form their own nation, the Confederate States of America.
Yeah! I'm as free as a bird now.
That was written during that time, right?
All I know is Leonard Skinner really likes their Confederate flags.
Yikes.
Yeah, man. It's a great design.
It was cool, but what it stood for was not.
Yeah, man. Come on, guys. The South will never rise again.
Yeah, and I know only recently there's been a recent push of that was redundant, but
having museums or something.
No, just not being outlaw, like not having it not be cool to fly the Confederate flag.
Yeah, it was just a recent push because people, Confederate flag, you know what they're fighting for, man. They're fighting for them slaves.
Oh, yeah. And it's also technically just one, and that even like that, of course, but also it's a giant testament to treason.
Yeah, so if you have one of those flags, assumedly, people will assume that you are ready to secede from the U.S. again.
At any point.
And if given the chance, you would purchase somebody to do work for you and you'd whip them.
That's kind of the context. Exactly. And that's why, that's where that context comes from. So,
yeep.
Something to think about.
Yeep.
Don't worry, everybody. We'll get to go soon. So, overall, pretty clear illustration of how far people are willing to go to continuing profiting off the suffering of others. And when you've doubled down, how much you don't want to go back on it. So now, this is how the war started. Fort Sumter, a Union-run base that suddenly found itself in Confederate territory once South Carolina seceded, was due for a resupply. Now, that's a problem because since they were now in Confederate territory, that resupply could be interpreted as an act of war. Confederate folks tried to delegate a peaceful treaty with the Union over this, but Abraham Lincoln refused any offer because making a deal with the Confederacy would legitimize them by acknowledging them. And Lincoln's stance was that secession was not a thing that states can do. These states that seceded are still in the Union. They are simply committing treason, basically viewing them as a bunch of babies that needed to be spanked.
That's a weird phrase that you put in that. It is in the outline.
Yeah, it works though. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. Mm-hmm. You're not wrong.
I did finish writing this 10 minutes ago, so before we started recording. So
that's fair. That's fair. You were thinking about spanking babies. I understand.
Yeah, it's been a weird weekend. So basically, Lincoln gave the order, nope, that ain't Confederate soil, that's American soil. Send that fucking resupply. So the Confederates demanded the base surrender. The Union soldiers gave a middle finger, and the Confederates opened fire. And so what was supposed to be a 1-week stomp for the Union instead became the hellish landscape known as the American Civil War that lasted for 4 years until eventually, in short, Union blocked all the ports, cutting off supply lines. They bitch-slapped Robert E. Lee and brought the USA back together.
And I'm proud to be an American.
And remember, if you recall, Trump was trying to erase that whole part of our history.
Did he?
Yeah, it was a 1776 commission. Yeah, it was legislation he tried to push that they used fancy words, but literally would rewrite our history books to say that slavery never happened or it wasn't as bad as they all said and that we didn't kill a shit ton of Native Americans.
Well, we don't have to worry about that because I'll still tell the people how many Native Americans scalped or had scalped others
Right.
and how many slaves there were. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, hey, you know, buddy, that's not cool. Like, if you can't just buy people, and then also you can't just make them a fraction of a person.
Right.
Like, metaphorically, you'd have to cut them in half or even 3/5 of them for it to be a 3/5 of a person.
I'd like to see how long you would last as an 8th grade teacher.
I mean, I'm just telling the kids the truth. You can't do it. But if you cut them physically. But I'm not saying to do it. That's not right.
No, well, and that's the thing. But that's the thing is when you cut them up, if they have to survive though. So the part that is not alive, technically that doesn't count.
So, right. So I guess what we could do is we could cut 2/5 of their legs off, or
Right.
whatever that might be their legs, and then just cauterize the wounds. They'll still be alive, but they'll be 3/5 of a person.
Yeah, but despite being 3/5 of the person, they'd still have the weight of a full person if they voted.
Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Isn't that-
I'm just thinking about them like being actual 3/5 of a
Oh my!
person.
Nick is like looking at his meat hooks. I can see the saliva like building at his lips.
I'm confused.
Unbelievable. So let's go back to modern day. Enough history. Hope you enjoyed it. If it put you to bed, you're welcome. See, we have multi-use podcasting. As we discussed previously, negativity, conflict, all have fairly potent properties. And that's the reason it's good to acknowledge this history, to both remember how fucked the U.S. is, but also to know why these spirits would want to linger. As you know, and as you've heard, a lot of these guys were pretty fucking mad. It takes a lot to make brother fight against brother, to literally dissolve your entire nation to kill each other. So, to talk about ghosts and begin the meaty part of this episode, we have to start with the epicenter of nearly all paranormal activity sourced from the Civil War, which would be motherfucking Gettysburg.
Gettysburg, what state is that in? Virginia?
Gettysburg is in Pennsylvania.
I knew that.
Yes.
Yeah, see, I know my history. That's why you do the research.
Yeah. It works. Now, Gettysburg, I'm actually really excited to talk about because I actually went there.
You've been to Gettysburg?
Yeah. When I was in 8th grade, we had a big East Coast trip, and I ended up going, and yeah, I saw like all this shit. Like we went on the tours, we had the tour guide. So that's why it's another reason I was really excited to do the research on this episode, because I've seen it.
Good for you, man. I'd call you a nerd. I'd maybe reach over across the table and give you a wedgie, maybe a purple nurple. Because that's fucking nerdy, right?
Right.
But two things. One, you didn't really have say in it because you were on like a school trip.
Right.
And two, I mean, it sounds kind of cool.
It was. Honestly, it was it had a real, and I mean, you know this when you go to places that are, because you've been to some pretty like fairly haunted places at least some point in your life, I imagine, right?
I've been to places that have definitely had a vibe.
Exactly. And that's the point I was going to make, because boy, did you feel it there. Like, I didn't really see anything per se. I didn't really have any like exact like, paranormal experience, but like you fucking felt it. It was just, and it wasn't like a like I'm in danger. It was just this gloomy, like it felt like what you would expect like Lavender Town from Pokemon would feel like,
Ding, 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 ding. Dude, it used to creep me the fuck out as a kid.
Oh, dude, that shit was terrifying. But that's kind of the vibe we got there. If you don't know anything about Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg is widely considered to be the bloodiest and most horrible battle of the entire Civil War. So you can bet this place is ripe with ghostly energy. Because
Ooh,
thank you, I know you practiced.
bring me
that.
my slaves.
I think they were more worried about food than slaves during the
yeah.
battle. But the battle itself, Battle of Gettysburg, lasted from July 1st to July 3rd. Interestingly, lines up with when our recording date for this.
Wait, it was only from the 1st to the 3rd?
Yeah, it's a 3-day battle.
Wow.
Yep. And in those 3 days, around estimated 46 to 51,000 casualties were reported before the Union successfully pushed the Confederates to retreat. It is considered to be the most costly battle in United States history in terms of American lives.
That's fucking crazy. That's a lot of dead people in 3 days.
That's a fucking shit ton of dead people. Like we said, the entire death count I think was like 620,000. So if we're even gonna like middle of the road at 48,000, that's like almost a tenth of like the entire casualties of the entire war in 3 days.
Crazy, dude.
A lot of people fucking died here.
A lot of people were mad, apparently. People were mad at each other.
Oh yeah, it was not fun. This battle in Gettysburg, along with another one, the siege of Vicksburg, halted the invasion of the North by the Confederacy and was a huge turning point in the Union for the war, which is probably why there's the most ghosts from here, because it was, in essence, one of the most pivotal battles of the entire thing. Because I'd like to be a little bit more clear, this was the battle where if the Confederacy won, they could start invading the North.
So okay, I know we're going to get into it, but I'm going to speculate for a second. If ghosts are if hauntings occur because of some unfinished business,
right,
as a theory,
yeah,
do you think that most of the ghosts at the Battle of Gettysburg are from the Confederacy because they lost and they're like, yeah, they took my slaves.
Well, I think it's because a lot of them died before there was a resolution. Because remember, whoever won this one had the advantage here. So a lot of them obviously died before the battle ended. So it could be that it could be just the anger of like, because who knows? I don't know how far ghosts know, but if we're gonna assume that ghosts are in the exact same frame of mind they were when they died, it was, if we lose this battle, we lose the war. So I need to keep fighting no matter the fuck what. So I almost wonder if maybe there was people who died and just never stopped fighting. Like their ghost just continued.
Oh, they're still running around with muskets and fucking eating hardtack. And it's damn good. Those pesky Southern ghosts.
As I found, it tends to be more Confederate ghosts than Union, because Confederacy got a little extra passionate because they felt like they were being attacked and they felt like their way of life was being threatened by, like you said, hoity-toity Northerners. Whereas the Northerners felt it was a more just cause. They were fighting an enemy. And I think the Confederates had more of a reason to feel like, and I'm not defending them because they were in the wrong, but in their situation, it's like with Nazi Germany. After you've killed that many people in like the Holocaust, like you kind of have no choice but to just double down, because there's no reprieve. There's no absolution from the atrocities you've committed. And the South, they were in the thick of it. So, and as we know, I mean, especially with the election with Biden and all that stuff, a lot of people, most people, in fact, almost all people would rather die than admit being wrong.
That's true. But hey, that is if we consider the fact that the Holocaust did happen, right?
That is a curious episode we might someday do in the future if it can be handled properly. Maturely. That's
right.
Another reason why we haven't done a 9/11 episode yet.
I have some things to say about that.
Mm-hmm. It'll be, because it's hard, because it's like you want to be respectful, but also like there's a lot of conspiracy that I think is just really interesting to look into. But we'll, classically planning the podcast on the podcast, but we'll see what we can pull off. Maybe after episode 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to call
can we name the 9/11 episode Geronimo?
No.
All right.
God, I need that was like being like winded for a second. Jesus. So to call the Battle of Gettysburg a bloodbath is putting it lightly. Men were not only shooting, sniping, and firing cannons, which also too, basically imagine you're running into battle and the guy next to you just explodes. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. But actually, especially in the Battle of Gettysburg, one more specific battle we'll get into a little bit later, there was a point, and this is what they also said on the tour, where they were charging each other with bayonets. Some even threw their guns to the ground, and it was just hand-to-hand, beating the shit out of each other, choking people out, like going for the eyes. Like it got to a point where it was just like caveman savagery.
So it was just kind of like any war in Ireland at any time. Just using their bare knuckles and dragging them on the ground and just swinging them at each other.
More like a weekend in Dublin.
Yeah, you're telling me, buddy.
I only know that because my Irish friend from Ireland did say that, yes, Dublin is just as bad as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're wrong, let us know.
But don't let us know never mind.
Probably a smart call. That being said, considering the decisive and personal nature of this battle, a lot of spirits were unable to let go and continue to linger, as we kind of touched on before. But they do say in the small city of Gettysburg, because keep in mind, it did not happen in, I guess it's more of a town. It was a lot of like the surrounding area around Gettysburg, in with some of the local areas. But the town of Gettysburg is still up and running. They still say there are sightings of people in full Civil War uniforms every now and again, both at the former battlegrounds and in town. And not just because of the Civil War reenactors. I know somebody out there is going to say, oh, there's just a fucking bunch of reenactors. No, well, here's the thing. If you look in mirrors or windows or faraway places, sometimes you will see a soldier staring at you. More rarely, some people report that while driving, they look in their rearview mirror only to find a soldier hitchhiking to the battlefield. There's also many specific locations around town that are a little bit more well-known for their paranormal activity. One is Gettysburg College, which is a private liberal arts college. Nick, you have an opinion on that?
I'm glad that you asked. What's a liberal art?
Like
is this where they do like home economics, women's studies,
yeah.
and all that sociology?
Yeah,
I got some stuff to say about that.
Right. You got 5 minutes.
I just need a couple seconds. It's sexist, right? If I ever applied to go to liberal arts school, I'd be the only dude there. I'd be the only straight-ish white male, right? Yeah. And I would be discriminated against,
probably,
and that's wrong. And so I think by them having colleges specifically for what you call liberal arts, what the world calls liberal arts, it is excluding people of certain demographics like myself, and that within itself is that's basically its own problem.
It's a hot take, Nick.
It's true.
Yeah.
Women's studies. What are women's studies? Riddle me that. What, do you just study women? Can I get a degree in that?
Well, there's a difference between women's study and just watching porn. That is not necessarily what they're thinking about when it comes to women's studies. No, it's about the position of like women in society and in modern society and how it, is different.
Men are subservient to women now.
That was like your equivalent of Kanye West. George Bush doesn't care about black people.
It's true, dude. It's like, I'm all for women's rights. I'm all for feminism to a degree.
Yeah.
I'm all for equality is the keyword I'm looking for here. And I'm sure that's a keyword that they began looking for too. But it's gotten to the point now where you can't say anything.
Right.
Lest they cut your balls off and castrate you.
If it's come that far, then we probably will have a second Civil War. But
yeah, it's just if we're talking about sheer strength, I think we know which side is going to win.
Christ. To deviate from that, if you do recall, a long time ago on the show, we did talk about the prospect of a second Civil War, especially with all this Trumpism going on.
Right.
Because essentially Trump's angle, it's got all the fancy, it's fascism. It's a, cult of personality he's trying to build. And fortunately, it seems like it's kind of dwindling out. I mean, he's trying his best to reignite the flame. But with like the insurrection and stuff like that, if the momentum continues, what's to say that, people are going to start rallying more? And what if another insurrection happens? And what if that leads to I would say we're at a point I would venture, if I had to bet money, I would say second Civil War is probably not going to happen. But it's also, still could.
I personally think that there will be a second Civil War.
Yeah.
Within the next 30 years. And I think what it's going to be is it's going to be one side full of a bunch of Zoomer, TikTok, blue hair having, 12 gender relating people.
Yeah.
Using their arms frailly as weapons.
Uh-huh.
And then the other side will be boomers and people who like Trump,
Cowboys
and people who like fried chicken and which is good, but I'm not saying I'm on their side.
Yeah. Well, you said that if it does happen, if you're a longtime listener, Nick's stance that he's going to provide his services to the highest bidder, be a sort of a mercenary.
And unfortunately, I think it might be the boomer side because we
probably.
can't. I mean, because this generation can't get jobs because they're too busy being furries and thinking that all jobs are oppression.
Well, when they're flipping through all the the thumbnails of which mercenary they want to hire, they see you in your mullet and what are those sunglasses you have?
Pit vipers.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, that's the one I want.
That's the one with the mustache. Get that guy in here.
So-
Looks like he gives us mustache rides in between battles.
So we'll see. A lot of hot takes today.
I mean, look, tell me what women's studies is. That's all I want to know.
Gettysburg College, a private liberal arts school, reportedly has numerous cases of spectral behavior, primarily in Pennsylvania Hall. Faculty and students alike have claimed to see a soldier standing on top of the building at night, aiming their rifle at onlookers.
Oh, so he's oh damn! So he's just ready to just start JFKing people, huh?
100%.
Damn.
What was that one thing? I mean, for at risk of being disrespectful, wasn't there a college in Texas where there was a sniper position on like one of their towers?
There was, yeah. I forgot the dude who did it, but
Yeah.
there was, and he picked some people off. It was in the 50s, right? It was kind of early for that kind of
It
shit.
was fucking proto America today, where literally just going to the grocery store could be a death sentence for all we know.
Yep.
So
Yep.
love America. Fuck yeah, great nation. This one I think you actually might like a lot, Nick, because this is one of the more spookier tales. So at Gettysburg College, there were two administrators who took the elevator from the third floor down to the first at the end of their workday, as they usually do. The elevator this time, however, instead arrived at the basement, and when the doors opened, the admins were met with the gruesome sight of a makeshift Civil War hospital with wounded soldiers howling in pain.
Oh, ouch, ouchie.
And doctors scrambling to piece them all back together. But despite all that blood, hustle, and commotion, the entire scene was dead silent. So the administrators were shitting themselves, panicking, screaming, rapidly slamming on the button to close the door. And just as the doors finally shut, one of the orderlies, reportedly in that little scene, looked and stared at them right in the eyes.
That's creepy. That's fucking creepy, bro. Imagine as the doors close, all of a sudden they just look over at you. You're "Ugh," from across the room. You're like, what the fuck?
All dead silent, covered in blood, holding some guy's severed
Sawing
arm.
somebody's fucking leg off. Here, bite down on this.
Yep. All the planks and everything.
Ugh.
So the administrators were pretty, a little startled. So they fled back upstairs and returned to the basement with help, only to find no doctors, no soldiers in sight, and everything had returned to as it originally was.
That's creepy. I just, especially that part of just, I can get over amputations.
Right.
I've seen enough. I've done enough.
Yeah.
But when it comes to that image of the doors closing in the elevator, just as they're about to shut, all of a sudden it looks over at you.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I'd poop my Pampers, and I'd be like, what in the fuck is going on here?
That's the shit that'll keep you up for probably the year at least.
Yeah, fuck that, man.
Ugh, awful. So that's pretty much it for the college. But they still say the guy on the roof, some people still report to see them every now and again.
Yeah, and you know what? Since it was a liberal arts college, they probably reported that person to the dean for even looking at him in the eye. That's harassment.
It's possible. Now, unfortunately, it did not specify whether it was Union or Confederate. So I'm not really sure what you could do with that, what you will. Another haunted location is Little Round Top. Keep in mind, this is all in Gettysburg.
Little round top.
Yep.
That's what I call the head of my penis.
That's because, Little Round Top was the site of one of the biggest battles in Gettysburg. So does it still work for your wiener name?
Yes, because it's little, it's round, and it is the top, and it's extremely violent.
With the amount of burns and boils.
Yeah, and I like to give myself paper cuts in the urethra, so it deals with that too. I slide it right in there,
Stop.
and I dip it in lemon juice.
Fucking debit card. Ugh, that's awful. Well, that was unnecessary. So Little Round Top is a rocky hill where a major Civil War battle took place. Battle of Gettysburg. You knew that. So, but the importance of Little Round Top was the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg, where the Confederates attempted a flank on the Union.
Ooh.
Now, this became one of the most famous and dramatic battles of the entire war, because on day one of the Battle of Gettysburg, the Confederates were actually extremely successful. So they did this flank to help to, really reinforce it. But the thing is, miraculously, the Union held off the flank, and Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain realized as they were holding them off, because it took a lot of effort and a lot of ammo, and they ran out. So In a last-ditch effort, he said, just fix the bayonets, man. We're charging in. As suicidal as it sounded, it ended up being the perfect tactical move, and they rolled the Confederates and pushed them to a retreat. So needless to say, this place is hell haunted now, and this was one of the places I got to personally visit. This is where the peak of that gloomy feeling was, because they showed us, like, this is where the cannons were stationed. They showed us, like, because it was like a rocky, hilly area. When I said there was pools of blood, they said in, like, the lower parts of the hills, it was pooled with blood. You could probably swim in it.
And I probably would.
You likely would have.
Because you didn't have to worry about many blood diseases back then.
You
could have your fun. You could have your cake and eat it too back then. Nowadays, if you try swimming in blood, I mean, you get all kinds of shit.
I mean, I still think the blood diseases were still there.
Not as many, though.
No, I think there was more. In fact, I think you were more likely to die in blood back then than you would now.
Oh, I think yeah.
Just look, okay, like, I know, like, AIDS wasn't a thing back then.
I think I'm just concerned about AIDS. I think that's what it comes down to.
There's a lot of more things in the blood than AIDS that will kill you.
But that's fine. I just rather not have AIDS.
Whatever suits you, man. Whatever suits you. If you want to die by sickle cell disease, whatever the fuck, do what you got.
All right, fine.
Gross. So basically, very bloody, very horrible. Tour guide said it was not unusual for some of us to see apparitions, and some people even claim to still hear the noises of the battlefield.
Ouch.
Oh, it was more dramatic than that for sure, but I didn't hear anything myself, but there were some people who were like, oh, I could kind of hear it. I'm like, I think you guys are bullshit.
Yeah, they're probably just full of
Being
shit.
a fucking douche about it. So that's what I think would happen. But one of the more well-known ghost sightings here, because as you'll find with a lot of these stories, a lot of it is just, you just see soldiers just like prepping and stuff like that. It's nothing really happens. But in this one, it was a little bit more of a happening. On site right here, they filmed the 1993 film Gettysburg. So they actually used the real battlefields to reenact it for the film. And they used real Civil War reenactors as the extras to really be as accurate as possible. Now, a few of the extras said they were approached by somebody in the Union soldier garb and gave them a box of ammunition. And they didn't think anything of it because everybody was dressed like Union and Confederate soldiers. But the thing is this particular guy vanished. And they have no idea where he went. And they were asking about him. People were like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. They opened up the ammo box, which normally was supposed to be full of blanks, was instead full of genuine musket shots dated back to the Civil War that were in pristine condition.
Holy crap, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of them are saying that was a good old Union soldier that was helping them arm up for the fight.
Come on, man. Come on, brothers. The Confederacy's almost here. Take these. Hey, gee, thanks. What are these?
These guys are probably like sipping beer and shit. Like, oh, thanks, buddy.
Hey, thanks, pal. Well, you're still a character, huh? You know you're just an extra, right?
Yeah, it's just so dedicated to his role. Method acting at its finest. Ugh. Also in Gettysburg, they have a walking ghost tour at night that you can go on.
What?
And I did go on it.
Was it sick?
It was okay.
Oh.
And that's coming from me. You know me, I don't like fucking scary shit at all. Like, what was it? We were like trying to pick a movie the other night and like, I hovered over a Paranormal Activity, which I've seen. And I think the face I made was like similar to like what you might imagine with like painful constipation.
Yeah. Or getting accepted into a liberal arts college. Yeah. No, but yeah, you were not into that, man.
Not a big fan. But that being said, like I said, it was eerie, but it wasn't terrifying. So one of the stops, though, was the Farnsworth House. Reportedly is haunted by 16 or more spirits. So during the Battle of Gettysburg, Confederates had used it as a makeshift hospital and a sniper nest. So there's a lot of classic Civil War arm chopping off going on here.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What the fuck did they use to snipe people with in the Civil War? Was it just a musket with a piece of glass on top and they just like tried aiming better?
I don't even think they used glass. I think they were just good at aiming.
Oh, so they're just talking about sharpshooters.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, see, I was like, man, what? I was like, what did they have, like 40 times scopes back then, and they were adjusting for wind and all that shit, and they had a spotter ready to go, letting them know when to rip it, you know?
Yeah.
Woo!
Summon the UAV, all that.
Take down the South.
Jesus. Well, yeah, they were just, sharpshooters. Just people who were just really good at it. To my knowledge, I could be wrong. They could have had a weapon designed better for sharpshooting. I don't know.
That's pretty cool, man.
But yeah, they were picking off Union soldiers from here. So when visiting, this is the Farnsworth House, people claim to hear heavy breathing, the smell of cheroot cigars, or straight up just having spirits showing up in the photographs you take there. And there's a particular Confederate ghost there named Walter, who is known to harm women. So be careful if you're going there, ladies.
What does he do to him?
It didn't say specifically, but I imagine the classic, like, grabbing their arm and yanking them around, scratches or bites.
Gobbles.
Gobbles, yeah, that's
not good. That's nasty. This is like Bill Cosby's ghost. He's gobbling people.
And Bill Cosby's free. He's a free man, so
yeah, ladies.
He might be listening to this.
Yeah. Oh, hey, look, Bill, what happened, man? Where in your life? I used to look up to you as a comedian, and then when I found out you're a rapist, I can't say I look up to you anymore.
Kind of hard to.
And all of a sudden, you get out of jail, and what are you gonna just hit the bars now? You start making drinks for people?
Yeah.
Hopefully not. You can go. So basically, you can go fuck yourself. You've ruined my childhood. You've ruined comedy.
The Cosby Show.
The Cosby Show. Did you touch that kid? Did you, Bill?
Yeah. I thought you were asking me. I'm like, Nick, what the fuck?
Did you touch that kid, Tasker?
No.
That little black girl on the Cosby Show?
No.
All right.
If it was anybody, it was Cosby or the producers.
Sickening.
Horrible.
Fucking sick. And now he's walking the streets. La-di-da, look at me. I'm
Making
Bill
peace
Cosby.
signs and showing up in photos.
He's fucking bugging out. Just having people like, ugh, God, it just pisses me off, man.
Yeah. Well, hopefully if the Dante's Inferno episode was correct, he'll find himself in a nice, cozy spot in hell.
Good.
So, yeah, interesting. Another stop on the ghost tour was the Jenny Wade house. This is where the only real civilian casualty of the Battle of Gettysburg had happened. 20-year-old Jenny Wade was kneading dough, which most agreed was for making bread for the Union troops. A stray bullet came through the building, entered through her shoulder, shattering it and piercing her heart, killing her instantly. It is reported that her ghost still wanders along with 2 other male spirits. One hangs out near the cellar and is possibly her father. The other haunts the upstairs and is known to ash his ghostly cigar on guests as they walk in and out of the house.
That's just kind of a dick move. That's not even like a scare. It's just kind of like a...
Yeah. And they even have it like on the website. They're like, oh, he's not a very well-mannered spirit.
Hey, bitch, come here.
Hey, come over. Why don't you turn around real slow?
Yeah, nice dress. Nice dress. What is this, fucking the 70s?
Oh, man. But additionally, on a more positive note, the Wade family was also known for their generosity in taking in orphans that were fleeing from their towns turned battlefields. And it said that these spirits returned to the home that treated them kindly. The spirits are reported as yelling out a friendly hey every now and again.
Hey.
Playing with the bed skirts, grabbing people's ankles, playing with people's jewelry, or tugging at their coats. But all very, like, just childish. And it's not like, a fucking, like demon grabbing your leg. It's like kids fucking around.
Oh, okay. Because, well, I picture if I get up from a bed or something and something grabs my ankle, it's scary.
Yeah. Was that one from that one video? It's like, hey, I have a belt. I'm not afraid to hang myself.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's a terrible, terrible option. Anyways, one last important stop in Gettysburg is the National Homestead at Gettysburg, formerly the Gettysburg Orphanage. It was actually built after the Civil War and was a place for orphans who lost their families. All was well after its founding, and Ulysses S. Grant himself was in pictures of when it was first opened. But things took a turn for the worst when the headmistress was replaced by a woman named Rosa J. Carmichael. She was known as a cruel bitch who would lock kids in outhouses during the winter, beat them senseless, and even shackle kids in a makeshift dungeon she built specifically to punish them. Now,
Creative.
yeah, very creative, but not in a good way.
Oh, yeah.
Carmichael was, at some point, charged and fined, but never served a second of jail time, and eventually the orphanage was closed down. It became a Soldiers' National Museum for a while before eventually closing for good November 2014. Now, Rosa Carmichael's ghost and that of the children are still haunting the grounds. It's not as violent as you might imagine, but they do hear the sound of children, probably being punished, apparitions of the children, strange mists, and even floating balls of light.
I mean, there's nothing worse than having to deal with child ghosts.
It's sad.
It's sad and it's extra scary, in my opinion, because kids are, even human regular kids are creepy.
I agree.
But then when they're not living and they're like moving shit on their, it's just like it's an extra layer of creepy and sadness.
It's kind of upsetting. It's another layer of disturbing that goes with it.
Yeah, but I mean, this bitch Rosa Carmichael.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
Honestly, yeah. But apparently all she does is just like walk around. Like, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Like I said, it was hard to find a lot of details on this. So if we're really going for the dramatic angle, we could say that she's still attempting to capture and punish these kids for eternity.
It's like it's an eternal Tom and Jerry episode, just chasing after him.
Except not funny at all.
Yes.
So to get out of Gettysburg for a little bit, here's a couple of miscellaneous ghost sightings, more around Pennsylvania and the East Coast. Pennsylvania's, like I said, most of this will come from Gettysburg because that was like the highest tense point. But there's a couple like spread around. So like Civil War reenactors have confirmed hearing the sounds of Civil War era cannons being fired at the Fort Davidson battlefield in Pilot Knob, Missouri at night. There was also reports of shadows and spirits of soldiers dashing or even just casually walking across the battlefield. So pretty chill. Nothing too crazy. The cannon fire would be kind of creepy though.
That would be terrifying.
Oh yeah, just hear a loud crack in the middle of the night and there's nothing there.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? Why is one of my cannonballs missing?
Yeah. Oh, and it's not even like this is in modern day too. Like this is a can. We don't really use cannons anymore.
Yeah, because they're inefficient.
We have much better ways of killing fellow men.
Yeah, hell yeah, we do.
Good stuff. The Rossborough Inn, which is located on campus at the University of Maryland College Park, is said to be haunted by many Civil War ghosts. It was originally used as a headquarters for Confederate General Bradley Tyler Johnson, and it is said that some of his soldiers simply just prowl about the place. There's just, like I said, not really a whole lot of activity. They just kind of show up and hang out.
Not diddling anybody, not threatening anybody.
Not just business as usual, just hanging out at home base. But there's also lore that the old inn manager, Miss Betty, who managed the inn during the war, also haunts the grounds. And apparently there's also another ghost who, unrelated to the Civil War, lost a duel, and his spirit just could not let it go.
That's pride. That's too much pride.
Yep. Almost respectable.
Yeah, he's like, hey, look, I know I lost, but I'll win. I'll win eventually.
You just wait. Oh, poor guy. In New Orleans, some claim that Beauregard Keyes House, the Beauregard Keyes House, is haunted by the spirit of Confederate General P.G.T. Beauregard and his entire regiment. Some speculate that this haunting is due to the guilt of his failure at the Battle of Shiloh, where he initially successfully launched a surprise attack on Ulysses S. Grant, only to get hit by a brutal counterattack once the Union reinforcements arrived. Losing that battle forced the Confederates to retreat, which allowed the Union to advance into Mississippi. So although the Union did have more casualties, both sides really did take a really steep toll and, like I said, paved the way for their invasion of the South, which eventually led to their downfall. Witnesses claim to see, I forgot his name already, P.G.T. Beauregard and his entire regiment as ghosts fighting the same fight beat for beat in front of his house.
That's a dumb name.
Beauregard?
Beauregard. Beauregard.
It's got
His parents hated him.
It's got the same energy of Bartholomew.
Bartholomew.
Oh, quite a name. Too many syllables. Now, there are tons more different locations with mild paranormal activity. A lot of like little situations similar to these. But the biggest Civil War haunting story of all is none other than the White House by Abraham Lincoln's ghost.
Honest Abe.
Honest Abe himself. Because of course, as you know, he got assassinated pretty hard.
What?
Jesus Christ. How much did you sleep in 8th grade?
Wait. How'd he die?
Well, let's get into it.
Oh.
Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by famous stage actor John Wilkes Booth on April 14th, 1865, which some say in modern day would be the equivalent of Joe Biden being assassinated by like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that he was killed by a stage actor.
Oh, that's what you're angling at. There's a conspiracy here that you're itching to talk about, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's some people say John Wilkes Booth killed him.
Yeah.
Some of the history books say it.
Right.
I think that he was killed by the same person who killed JFK, a time traveler.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Well, what about? So did just John Wilkes Booth just take the hit for it? Because everyone saw him jump off onto the stage in his famous Sic Semper Tyrannis before running away. Right?
That's all fake. I mean, there was no cameras back then. We couldn't. You can only trust word of mouth, right?
Right. That was a lot of witnesses, though.
Yeah, but a lot of witnesses who thought that Jesus was like actually like walking on water at the time, you know what I mean? And then thought that the sun revolves around the earth and fucking, you know what I mean? Like a bunch, it was like what, 1865. That was a long time ago, man.
Yeah, okay, all the things you're talking about happened centuries before all this. And it's not like John Wilkes Booth was a nobody. He was famous. Everybody recognized him.
He could have been that famous, was he?
He was that famous. You know, okay, they didn't have the internet, but word still got. He was a performer on a stage play. He traveled. He toured.
Well, regardless of what they saw or what they think they saw,
Oh my God.
I can't trust the word of a bunch of savages, right? Going to something called a stage, like a play.
Yeah.
There's no television, right? They went and actually saw people act in real life. That sounds like some shit, that old-timey shit. I can't trust people who did that.
Well, you're going to like this, and I'm going to hate saying it, but there is some ufologists that speculate that Lincoln's path was ordained by extraterrestrials who, with the Civil War, that was a big turning point for American history, because if the Union lost, that sends a message across the world that democracy is destined to fail and it's not a good system. But if they won, democracy would prevail and we could, have a working system of trying to keep people free, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now if we're running under the assumption that aliens are pulling the strings behind everything, they knew that Lincoln had to arrive and go in a very specific way to lock things down the way they wanted to. And supposedly they're what led Lincoln to spectacularly win that election. They're supposedly what led Lincoln to be assassinated in the way that he did, in the sort of martyrdom-like way that really solidified him as a figure that, to keep as a symbol of democracy. Something like that.
You're not wrong. That sounds like some Galactic Federation shit right there. Trying to keep the peace, keep humanity spiritual and raised, right? Because they knew that they were dealing with a bunch of savages back then.
Yeah, well, comparatively speaking. We will find that Lincoln, there was some, well, let's get into it. There was some superstitious stuff that happened surrounding him before he was assassinated.
Interesting.
So, to go forth, the assassination, of course, of Lincoln was part of a wider plot to kill three main Union figures in order to reignite the Confederate cause. Other targets were the Secretary of State, William H. Seward, who got away with just a couple wounds, Vice President Andrew Johnson, who was unharmed because the would-be assassin lost their nerve. Booth was captured after a 12-day manhunt. Okay, allegedly, John Wilkes Booth, you're welcome,
Thank you.
was captured after a 12-day manhunt, and all of them were hanged. Weirdly enough, before all of this had happened, though, Lincoln is said to have many premonitions of his own death before it happened. Shortly after being elected, Lincoln reportedly woke up, walked over to the mirror, and saw two versions of himself when he looked at his reflection. One version was young and spry, the other was pale and decrepit. And now he walked away, and he came back, and it still was there. It wouldn't go away. So he talked to his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, about it, and she deciphered it as a prophecy. The two figures meant that he would be elected for 2 terms. The youthful version means he would successfully serve out the first, but the pale version meant that he would not live to make it through the second. And as history has shown, that is exactly how that shit went down. He was killed in the first year of his second term after re-election after the victory in Civil War for the Union.
What a supportive wife. Hey, honey, I had this vision in the mirror. What do you think it means? Oh, you might die.
I think it means we gotta fucking break out that will and change a couple things.
I think I might have to be calling that other guy who asked me out the other day, because you're not going to be lasting much longer.
It's pretty fucked up. Though I imagine the conversation was a lot more tense than that.
Yeah, I guess so. It probably wasn't as jovial. Yeah.
No, they were. Well, and there is talk that she was very into spiritual shit.
A witch.
A witch, possibly. We don't know. Lincoln supposedly had another premonition in the middle of his presidency. We only know this because a close friend of his, Ward Hill Lamon, whatever.
We're an early white people America. It is Lamon.
Lamon. Okay.
It's Lamon.
Ward Hill Lamon, one of Lincoln's close friends, wrote down an account of a dream that Lincoln had, which he dictated to him himself. Lincoln, in his dream, was in the White House, and people were weeping all throughout the halls. He walked around until he reached the East Room, where there was a corpse in a coffin covered in funeral dressings, surrounded by soldiers and even more people, crying, weeping, bawling. Lincoln demanded one of the guards to tell him who had died, and the guard replied, it was the president. He was killed by an assassin.
Ooh.
So that was a dream he had while in office, and that shit went down. Kind of creepy. But along with these premonitions, Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln were also reportedly said to partake in various seances with a young medium named Nettie Colburn, which added even more supernatural fuel to the fire.
That's a witch name if I ever heard it. Nettie Colburn. That's badass, dude.
So yeah, a lot more supernatural witchcrafty stuff surrounding Lincoln. And somebody like you, who I'm sure is into all that conspiracy stuff, I don't know.
There's a connection here. Something's going on.
There's
Something happened that isn't just John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah, that's what some people speculate, that there's a little bit something. Some people said that Nettie Colburn was actually possibly an alien in disguise and was how they communicated their plan to Lincoln.
And implanted maybe premonitions into his head, because aliens obviously can implant memories or visions into people's heads if they want to, like a movie.
Yeah.
And they're basically giving him a heads up like, hey, this shit's going to happen.
I don't know. Hard to say. But regardless of what the intention was, extraterrestrial or not, since his death, Lincoln's ghost, also sometimes simply called the White House ghost, is said to have been lingering since the day of his death. The first reported apparition of Lincoln was first spotted by First Lady Grace Coolidge, who witnessed his ghost standing by the window of the Oval Office with his hands behind his back, quietly looking over the Potomac River. Of course, this happened during Calvin Coolidge's presidency, which was somewhere between 1923 and 1929. Since then, and they felt his presence before, but this was the first time they saw him, as Lincoln. Since then, numerous presidents, political figures, and witnesses have seen Lincoln's spirit lurking around. Several employees claim to have seen his shade around the Lincoln bedroom, which is where a lot of the sightings, as you might imagine, took place. Lincoln is supposedly could be seen either lying down on the bed or putting his boots on. There's also plenty of recorded cases of employees running away screaming or fainting at the sight of Lincoln's ghost. There are also reports of people hearing his footsteps around the bedroom as well.
Probably some clunky-ass, heavy footsteps, man.
It ain't Nikes, I'll tell you that. I'm sure they have a very distinct sound to them. Now, Eleanor Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower's press secretary, James Haggerty, and First Lady, Lady Bird Johnson's press secretary.
Lady Bird?
Yep, Lady Bird Johnson.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That is just
I thought about that
unfortunate.
too. And it's First Lady Bird. There's two ladies. That's too much.
You know, I just found out yesterday what we're supposed to be calling Kamala Harris's husband.
What?
Second gentleman is the official term for, because this is the first time we've ever had a husband.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we can't call him First Lady.
Yeah, because he's a man.
I think. I mean, I'm not going to assume his gender. I've gotten in trouble for doing that.
Well, he goes by First Gentleman, so he did the work for us.
Yeah, but second gentleman is what they call
Second
him.
Gentleman.
Isn't that weird?
Interesting. Not Vice Gentleman.
Mm-mm.
Weird. Well, yeah, I guess it's a new thing. They had to come up with some. I bet it was just like whatever he wanted. He was just like, that sounds dope. I'll take that.
Sounds dope, dude. Yeah.
I don't blame him. So, all these people that I mentioned, they all reported feeling Lincoln's melancholic presence. Because if you know anything about Lincoln, he was a gruff, very sad man.
If he lived in the modern times, he'd be super into goth music,
100%.
and he would probably have eyeliner on.
Probably. And the funny thing is, actually, I think you and Lincoln would have a lot in common because he was a tough guy. He was known back in Illinois you'd fucking get in like wrestling rings and shit. He was the fucking champ. He'd beat the shit out of people. But like, he's a bit of a doomer in heart, you know?
I love that. I love that conflict of interest. I love it.
Yeah. And he was like into the spiritual shit. And like, Nick, you might be the reincarnation of Lincoln.
Does that mean I'm going to get shot?
Maybe.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I mean, the place you live in has you're allowed to carry a gun with you. So who's to say?
Oh, look, I just want to say, as the reincarnated Abe Lincoln, I think I made a good decision with that whole, Emancipation Proclamation. I think that was a good call.
Yeah. That was
and you're welcome.
Yeah. So this is now solidified in the meta that Nick is, in fact, the reincarnation of Abraham Lincoln.
I'm pretty sure.
I could see it. You got to start wearing a top hat or something.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
If it convinces people, I'll do it, man. I'll wear some weird boots and I'll shave my mustache so I just have like a weird Amish beard. Yeah, I could do that too.
I mean, we've come so far with the mullet. I mean, like, what's stopping you? So a lot of people did. They did say that they felt his presence, but never did see him. Eleanor Roosevelt, in particular, would feel him standing behind her, peering over her shoulder because she had used his bedroom, the Lincoln bedroom, as her study.
Oh, I'm glad that's where that went, because I thought you standing behind her, rubbing her shoulders.
What is the fucking
Eleanor?
Yikes! Like that one dude who finally got into jail for he was like the women's Olympics doctor.
Oh yeah, that piece of shit.
Yeah, burn in hell. So Harry S. Truman's daughter, Margaret Truman, claims to have heard a spectral rapping at the door while she stayed in the Lincoln bedroom. Now, of course, that does not mean the modern sense of rapping. We're talking more of like an Edgar Allan Poe.
Rapping, tapping at my chamber door. 'Tis some visitor, I muttered. Rapping at my chamber door. Merely this and nothing more.
I thought you would enjoy it.
Ah, distinctly I remember. 'Twas an oblique December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow for my books surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore.
See, now I'm thinking you're both Abraham Lincoln and John Wilkes Booth combined into one.
For the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Nameless here forevermore.
Beautiful. Well said.
Yeah, I had to memorize that poem back in the day. And yeah, it's still stuck in my head, just taking up space.
But you're a big Poe fan, though, right?
I love Poe.
Yeah.
But I can't understand a goddamn word he says.
And such is poetry back in the day, huh? Oh, boy. So, moving forward, Lincoln's ghost supposedly appeared more frequently during Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency, which, if you know anything about history, coincided with the Great Depression and World War II. And they do say a lot more paranormal activity tends to happen around giant historical events. Even the ufology community in the research that I did, supposedly they claim that most sightings occurred around, or most interactions occurred around the Civil War, the Revolution, World War I, World War II, of unexplained things appearing in the sky. Now, part of you can attribute that to the paint thinner, whatever the fuck they were drinking back then. But I don't know. That's old times. I can't say for certain.
Something going on with, because I personally believe that when we fight each other on Earth, how high of a vibration do you think that is? That's not very high.
Nah.
Because we're killing each other over some dumb shit.
Yeah.
Usually. Actually, every time, pretty much. When it comes to the Galactic Federation, that's not what they like to see.
Nah.
That we're never, if we keep doing that shit, we are never going to make it into the Federation. And I think that's why sightings coincide with war, is because they're observing and they're taking notes and they're just kind of like shaking their heads like we're a bunch of fucking monkeys.
These fucking apes.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what's happening. That's what I think is happening.
Well, imagine, like, they just founded America, this whole idea of democracy, like, make everybody free. They're like, federations, like, that's what we're fucking talking about. And they look away for like a couple hundred years, they look back and now they're already marching on each other.
Yep. And every time we go to war, the Federation becomes a little more disappointed in us.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of the recurring events.
Yeah. Anyways, that's my 2 cents on what's happening.
I'm glad we could fit some aliens in here somewhere. So, famously in the White House, Wilhelmina. Queen, yeah?
I'm not going to claim to know how to say that. Wilhelmina.
Yeah.
Because it's from the Netherlands, right?
Yeah. So we'll go with that. Wilhelmina stayed as a guest at the White House and woke up to somebody knocking on her door, only to open it and see the full-bodied Lincoln, top hat and all, leaning up against the wall in the hallway. She fainted and woke up on the floor.
Leaning up against the hallway like he's like, hey, bitch, you want to go for a ride?
He was making moves. You know, it's been a long time.
I heard you in there.
I heard you're royalty.
You don't have to be lonely anymore.
Good God. One of my personal favorite stories, though, and this is like kind of the last major one here, is when Winston Churchill had stayed at the White House. Now, Winston Churchill was known for his late bedtime and his routine of taking a hot bath with a cigar and a nice cup of scotch to relax. One night, he left his bath completely nude, except for the cigar. And
that's not an image anybody wants to think about. It's fucking Winston-ass Churchill coming out of the bath, just all soaking
of cigar smoke and
oh, jeez, with his
trashed. Walks out with his cigar and entered the adjacent bedroom, only to find the full-bodied spirit of Lincoln leaning up on the mantle on the fireplace. Churchill, quote, simply took his cigar out of his mouth, tapped the ash off at the end, and said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." Lincoln smiled softly as if laughing and then disappeared. Churchill smiled in embarrassment, end quote.
That sounds like the beginning of a gay porn.
You seem to have me at a disadvantage.
I'm going to do it like Winston would sound like.
All right.
Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage, you do.
I bet Lincoln thought the accent was funny, too.
I'm going to get so much hate from
him. 100%.
I'm pretty sure he was not Cockney. I don't
know.
I know. I've heard him talk before. That's what I think he talks like, all right?
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President. Yeah, right.
Hey man, whatever floats your boat.
I just love making people mad.
Yeah, it's a good talent. Anyways, the last time anyone saw Lincoln's ghost was in the early 1980s, where Tony Savoy, a White House operations foreman, witnessed Lincoln sitting in a chair on top of a staircase. There's also been reports of a child ghost in the White House, which many assume is probably Lincoln's deceased son, Willie. Yeah.
Willie.
Yeah. Let it out.
It's classic.
Sightings occurred as early as the 1870s and as recently as the 1960s. There was only one case where, they've seen him, but no real interaction. But President Lyndon B. Johnson's daughter, the then college-age Linda Bird Johnson, claims to have seen Willie and even had a small conversation with him.
What's up with these names, man? Linda Bird. What was that other girl's name? Or was that the same person?
Yeah, I know. Linda
Something about birds.
There's two birds. There's two bird names.
And then a Willie.
Yeah, Willie. Back in the day, man, it did not have what is it? Isn't back in old comics there's something where it was it was a phrase where it's you need some firm dick or something like that, and that meant straight talk.
Oh, cheesy. I can't. Damn. See what? The vernacular. I know it changes over time, but it's still goofy to listen to.
It's good for a chuckle for sure. But that's pretty much it.
We have a visitor. we got invaded by a pug. There's a pug in this room.
Kiwi does exist. We didn't make him up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you heard the jangle of his little collar, but he did come in here. It was a very, very nice visit.
Okay, now go away. Go away. We're recording. Good boy. He just booked it.
Oh man, what a guy. That's pretty much it. Like I said before, there's a ton of smaller stories out there, but there really was nothing horribly ghastly, malevolent, or terrifying. Because, and we kind of talked about this before, but a lot of these spirits, they're just kind of caught up in their own bullshit. They died for a very intense cause. They don't give a shit about onlookers. They got a war to win.
They still think they're fighting a war.
Yep. They're busy.
And it seems like old-timey hauntings, not a lot of them seem malevolent. They seem, like we've talked about before, these are hauntings, right?
Yeah.
These aren't possessions. They aren't demons. So and we've talked about this before, hauntings for the most part are benevolent anyway, because it's somebody trapped in a period of time.
Yeah.
They're essentially
doing their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The worst that happens is you just kind of get a minor annoyance. So shit isn't flying off the walls. Nobody's getting hurt, except for that one ghost who apparently harms women. So I don't know how far that goes, but
yeah, but that might be something else altogether. That might be a demon hanging out with some ghosts, being like,
that is very
"That's
true.
what I love about high school girls. I get older and they stay the same age. Yes, they do."
When they recut us up for our cancellation, that's going to be how it ends, with us in a chorus.
Oh, great! We should have just done a harmony.
At that point, might as well. We'll have to practice for next episode. But if you are interested in seeing a ghost from the Civil War, which I don't know, I feel like there's much more interest. If you're going to be a ghost hunter, I think there's much cooler ways to go about it. But if you are that interested, Gettysburg is going to be your best bet. That is the closest I ever felt to a spectral presence. But I never did see any actual ghosts there. Although, now this one might get cut out of the story. The only thing that ever happened that was kind of weird was I nutted in my sleep.
What?
Yeah, nocturnal emissions. You ever heard of those?
Yeah, I have them every night. But you had one back.
It could have been that, or maybe I got jerked off by a ghost.
Man, so one of those soldiers was super lonely, dude. He showed up. He's like, "Hey, this kid looks like he's ready to pop."
Because it was only in Gettysburg, and I never had that problem ever in my life.
Interesting. Hey.
I think it might have happened. That might have been a ghastly molestation. And I'll tell you, it was annoying.
Yikes. So technically you've been molested.
Technically, I guess so. I guess I'm really coming forward with something.
You're a victim.
I am a victim. I should fucking go back, get some reparations.
Let's not bring up reparations on this episode.
That's fucking terrible.
But that sucks, man.
Yeah.
No, I've actually never had a nightly emission before. I heard they're dope.
They're okay. We're gonna keep this brief. They're annoying because basically, it's just imagine you just wake up and it's because half the fun of jerking off is the build up and the finish. Imagine just none of that and it's just a mess.
Okay, that sucks. So you didn't even feel anything. You weren't even like, oh, it sucks. Then never mind. You just woke up in your own jizz. All right, cool.
The worst part is that, like I said, all this might be cut. But the worst part was that I was also sharing a bed
With who?
Some other student. I don't know. It's been years.
Maybe he jerked you off. I don't
Maybe
know.
he did. I don't know. If he did, I'll fucking give him props because
What?
that guy was out.
Oh.
There's no way it could have been him.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we keep it in because
Yeah.
people need to know. But remember, what grade are you in? 8th grade?
Yeah, I was 8th grade. So I was about, 14.
Gross.
Yeah,
All
great.
right. Well, good for you guys, man. Good for you guys being lovers in Gettysburg.
Feels great to get that off my chest.
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't think it was a ghost at all. I think you just had a gay encounter that you're super
repressed.
it. This has been good for you. This
And
is
apparently,
getting it out.
and if that is so the truth, it wasn't a good one.
That sucks even worse.
It was very okay. Great way to end this episode.
Yeah.
We started off with talking about American liberties and rights, and ending with nocturnal emissions and jerking off.
Yep. It's just usually how our episodes go.
Another
No matter what we talk about, it
fucking
usually
week.
starts with slavery and ends with coming. So,
I should have known being in person was just it amplifies the usual sexual tension.
oh yeah, I'm rock hard right now.
Yeah, no, me too. It's been a journey. So yeah, thank you all for listening.
Good job on the research, homie.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very fun for me, and it's an interesting change of pace for me to even look in the. I mean, were you surprised I managed to work aliens in?
I was very. I'm not. You know what? I'm less and less surprised each time now because I kind of see you changing and transforming into something closer to me. I'm just more proud every time.
Oh, it's the descent to madness, is what I think. I think
Yep.
I'm just slowly losing my goddamn mind.
Good.
So we'll see. But
I'm proud of you.
thank you. But thank you all for listening. Of course, as we all know, Count Chocula was a big force in all of this. But of course, we couldn't get into it because we're already kind of overstaying our welcome on this topic. So let it be known that in probably around part 6 of our Count Chocula series, we will go into his part in the Confederacy and how high up he actually was back then.
He was. I mean, just a little bit of a spoiler, tiny spoiler. He was almost basically running the entire South at that point.
Yeah, and like his plan, all those plantations.
Which is ironic
I know, right?
because he is Count Chocula.
Yeah, I know. That's how they tricked him.
Yeah, see, they say, hey, no, he's a friendly, he's an ally for the North. Nope,
But he was the one who brought a lot of the slaves in. Pretty
it's
bad.
fucked up, man.
Pretty bad. So, if that didn't make you unsubscribe and report us, if you are listening on iTunes, if you could please 5-star rate and review, that would help us a ton. If you're listening on Spotify, you can click that follow button for updates. We do have new episodes every single Wednesday. Our Instagram is at CEOTPK. Our YouTube is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. Our Twitter is at CEOTPK1. Facebook is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind, or just facebook.com/CEOTPK. You can email us at CEOTPK1@gmail.com. Join our Discord. Share your thoughts. Share your prayers. Share what you offended you today.
Yeah.
Discord.gg/lowercase b, number 6, capital C, capital T, number 5, capital M, capital X. If you find that as tedious as I do, you can find all these links at our Facebook in a nice, neat, pinned post at the top. We also have a coffee, ko-fi.com/CEOTPK if you feel the need to donate, but that is non-essential. It's just kind of our own little tip jar.
That's right. And all those tips go straight back into hosting costs,
Yep.
equipment, all that good, fun, bureaucratic bullshit that we need to do to have a podcast for you guys. So we do appreciate the tips. But hey, just listening is a gift in itself.
True.
That is my hippie side coming out saying that.
Yeah, what do you know? Recording remotely or the program that does it well costs money. Same with hosting.
Ain't that just the way it goes? You can't have anything good for free, can you?
But we are more than happy to do the show. It's always a gloriously fun time, and it's always great to hear from you guys. Honestly, that's half of what makes it worth it, outside of just being able to scream at each other.
Yeah, we love seeing you guys on Discord, so please join that shits and talk to us. And look, whether you think the South will rise again or not, the truth is out there.
Whether you think that book should fucking be closed once and for all, tear those flags down. It is not. At Gettysburg College is as this I'll cut that. Jesus.